I just want to express my thanks to all of you, and I believe that this contract has shown tremendous evolution and thoughtfulness relative to the original contract, and I want to thank you for that hard work. This is a report. I'll entertain a motion.
I move acceptance of the report.
Second.
Any further discussion? Carla, please call the roll.
Fritz?
I agree with the Mayor that this is necessary, and also appreciative of the work that you've all done. This does address many of the concerns that I've been hearing over the past several years. And we will be getting frequent updates on how this is going, and of course we'll hear from our constituents if it doesn't go as well as we hope. So I appreciated, Lucas, not only your work over 4 years, but also your recognition that it's going to continually improve the process, and also that in the statistics that we were given today showing only 15% are actually addressed, so that should set expectations from community members inside and out that there's still going to be a lot of people living outside that will need our help. Aye.
Hardesty? I also greatly appreciate the hard work, Lucas. I think you would agree that I kind of put you through the ringer last week because it was really important that I understood why this proposal at this time. I want to make sure that for the record, the public knows that the plan is that you will have to come back to the city council before there is any extension of this contract, that we will have community conversations with frontline community members to make sure that their feedback is incorporated into whatever the next steps are. And that number 3, that we will have a city council work session with invited testimony before any additional contracting is done with this one contract. I want to also encourage the folks that are working on the street to actually really engage with those community members who are frontline workers with houseless community members and help develop opportunities for them to be employed, to be able to help with these cleanups as well, right? I think what you've done, Lucas, has been pretty phenomenal, and I'm very grateful to your heart and your compassion around this issue, right? It's rare that we get to wear our heart on our sleeve in the kind of work that we do, because this kind of work, you can't make anybody 100% happy. But I am confident that we have the right people leading this program with the right kind of heart. But I will also make sure that we're held to the commitments that we agreed to in order to move this contract forward. So I vote aye.
Daly.
Well, I want to thank our community partners, especially Street Roots, for bringing their concerns to our attention and for being patient with us as we work to improve and move this work forward. I've been working on homelessness issues since I first arrived in City Hall 3 years ago, and my office facilitated multiple meetings between community advocates, the mayor's office, and HUCRB. Working together, we made many improvements to the old contract, including a process that prioritizes health and safety concerns for cleanups and deprioritizes low-impact camps. Weekly phone calls with resource providers to coordinate the needs of people in camps that are scheduled for cleaning. Earlier notices to camps to help people prepare in the event they have to move, and the end of the use of prison labor to clean the camps. I'm also very pleased that we struck the agreement with ODOT, who had not adopted our new policies, and we couldn't expect the public to distinguish between the city and ODOT, and what they saw was people continuing to do the things that we said we weren't going to do anymore. So thank you for that. We now have a much more humane approach and have greatly minimized cleanups that require people to move, as we learned today, just 15% of the sites. However, the biggest challenge in my mind remains, and that is that if we are requiring people to move, I believe we have to have somewhere for them to go. we have to offer an alternative site or a shelter bed to anyone being moved against their will. And I haven't given up on that, although we haven't achieved that. My office through PBOT recently permitted a new volunteer overnight hygiene center in the Central East Side, and we are actively analyzing PBOT right-of-way to identify safe sleeping spaces that will give people living outside another option to avoid being moved against their will. I'll continue to push this work and to use all the resources available to me. I want to thank Lucas Hillier and his team. You guys have been amazing to work with and always very open to our feedback and willing to collaborate, and I deeply appreciate that. The program is constantly learning, growing, and improving. I also want to thank Jamie Duhamel from my office for her work on this item, and just appreciate my colleagues for finding a way to move forward on this. I definitely support the short-term contract and the promise that we are going to do deep community engagement to make it even better. I look forward to being an active partner, and I vote aye.
Wheeler.
I want to hone in on something Lucas said during his presentation. This is not our strategy to end homelessness. This is about public space remediation. And there are some sites that provide a very real threat to public health, to the environment, and to public safety. And as what I hope people understand, having heard the presentation, is this is done with compassion. It's done by people who have the lived experience, who understand the conditions of people who live on our streets. And it's done in a manner to connect people with whatever services they need to get off and stay off the streets and be successful. I believe it's a good, excuse me, you're going to have to sit down, or I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Excuse me, listen, there realistically, given the number of sites, there will always be improvements that we can make and we should make, but I think you've struck an excellent balance here. And I want to appreciate the hard work you've put into it. And we will continue to work on our primary strategies, which are compassionate and effective to address homelessness, whether it's prevention. Last year through the Joint Office and a Home for Everyone, 7,000 people received prevention services in this community, people who are at high risk of becoming homelessness. Last year, over 6,000 people were moved either from the streets or from shelter into housing. 35,000 people in this community received other services, whether it was prevention, shelter, access to services, or transitioned into housing. And we're working with both our state and our county partners on connecting people who need addiction treatment or mental health services. We work with nonprofit organizations to connect people with domestic violence survivorship services. We work with providers around youth needs and youth services, and we work with our school districts. We work through the Housing Bureau on affordable housing. So there's many things that we are doing, and I want to acknowledge something Commissioner Fish might have mentioned if he were here today, which is we have pursued a very aggressive set of goals around permanent supportive housing to address those who are chronically homeless, those who have the greatest health needs, to help them get off the street. We committed to 2,000 units of permanent supportive housing in this community over 10 years, but we're being far more aggressive than that. In year one, we either identified or created over 850 new units of permanent supportive housing. So this is a part of a much larger strategy to address this humanitarian crisis on our streets. And I want to thank you for the great work that you and your team are doing. We appreciate it. I vote aye. The report is accepted. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And as a manager, I would not be a good manager if I didn't thank my team, Jonathan and Katie Lindsay, who's on maternity leave right now. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about this, and I appreciate your.
And Lucas, while you're at it, I forgot to mention Seraphy Allen on my team.